Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Injury Law Pod. I am your host, Eric Bartlett, 29-year personal injury lawyer, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things personal injury law related. And today we're going to wrap up a three-part series as we kick off 2026, and we're talking about things that you have to know about the potential of you being seriously hurt and having a personal injury claim. So the first episode that kicked off the new year, we talked about being prepared and what you need to do now, not later, to make sure if the unexpected happens, you're ready for it. And again, as I said, it's not about being paranoid. It's just about being prepared. And then the second episode was talking about the first 30 days after some type of an accident happens where you're seriously hurt and how that looks, how that unfolds, what you need to be doing, what you need to be thinking about. And we talked about that timeline, some of the critical things that have to be done so that, number one, you get on the road to healing, and number two, you preserve the claim that you potentially have. There are mistakes that can be made, and they can dramatically affect your claim. And so that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that time is never on your side when an accident happens and you're hurt. And I'll put that up on the screen, that second episode at the end of this podcast, and you can click on that. If you missed it, it's a great time to check it out. And again, the first episode about being prepared, if you missed that, find it. Make sure you're setting yourself up just in case. So today we're going to talk about from injury to resolution, how personal injury cases really move, and how to protect yourself along the way. And we're going to talk about the long middle and the finish line. That's how you can look at it. And we're going to talk about, first off, why the middle of a case is the hardest part. The injury itself is usually sudden and obvious, but the months that follow are where frustration, doubt, and possibly bad decisions creep in. People expect progress every week, and that's just not how injury cases work. So this middle ground, this is the phase where people feel ignored, confused, or stuck. And truthfully, this is a lot of times where people are reaching out to a lawyer like me. They initially thought they could handle it on their own, that for whatever reason, they don't believe the insurance company is more sophisticated than they are. They can get all this put together. They can keep their medical treatment on track. They're not going to feel overwhelmed. And then somewhere in the middle of all of this, reality sets in and they figure out, okay, this was a little more complicated than I realized. And this is the time period where a person that's going through all of this may feel like nothing is really happening, even though a lot is happening behind the scenes. And that's the key point to remember, because while somebody is sitting there injured, trying to tend to their medical needs, and they just think that all of this at the end will come together, they don't expect or anticipate that there's an insurance company on the other side of this claim that's working very hard to diminish the claim or deny it outright. And insurance companies, they understand this emotional stage very well. It's in their benefit for this to drag on. Because number one, they're not paying money. So they're holding on to their money. Number two, they're expecting the person that's been hurt to essentially give up and not do the things that are necessary to work towards full compensation on that claim. And they're just hoping and expecting that they will wear you down. And that is where they get the advantage. So today's episode is about understanding the process. So impatience doesn't cost you money or peace of mind. Again, if you get worn down, the insurance company, they smell blood in the water, and guess what? They win. So let's start with the biggest misconception: why cases don't move faster. So an injury claim, you can view it as a long game, right? And why is it that injury cases take time? Medical recovery is unpredictable. A lot of people call me and they ask, so how long do you think this will take? And my answer is always, it depends on how long it takes for you to get better. It depends on how long you're missing time from work. And it depends on what the future permanent disabilities are out of this injury. You can't value a case until doctors understand, will you fully heal from your injuries? Will the symptoms linger? Will future care be needed? These are critical components to any injury claim. And those questions, they have to be answered. You cannot jump too soon without knowing those answers. Now, what is insurance waiting for? They're waiting for gaps in your medical treatment. I talked about that in the last two episodes. They're waiting for inconsistencies in complaints, and they're waiting for signs the injured person is under financial pressure. And that's a real possibility, because when you're hurt and if you're out of work, you're now financially struggling, and that insurance company, they're just waiting for that moment because they know you're more likely to take whatever offer they put on the table, and they can close the books, they can dismiss your claim within their system, and they never have to worry about you again. So things that I hear from people that call me: why can't we just demand a number? Why is my lawyer telling me to wait? Why hasn't insurance responded yet? Time isn't wasted. It's either building your case or weakening your case. You have to be prepared to take your time, because again, quick action leads to bad results. And I've talked about this in the past. Insurance companies now, some of them, they're trying to throw out quick offers within days of an accident. They're trying to get people to bite and get it done, move it on. And what happens is, a lot of times I have people calling me saying, hey, I took this offer. They offered me money right out of the gate, and it's now 4 months later, and I'm going in for an MRI on my back because I'm still having trouble. And unfortunately, I have to tell them, sorry, it's too late. You settled your claim. You can't go back to the insurance company. It's done. Legally, it's done. So again, you have to be patient. Let's talk about medical treatment, maximum improvement, and reality. So there, maximum medical improvement, a generic term, just meaning you're either all better or this is as good as it's going to get. The doctors say there's nothing more they can do for you. Okay, that is the point where we can start to think about how to resolve the claim for the best, fullest compensation. But what this means is that, again, the doctors are the ones, they understand that this is healed, what hasn't healed, and what's permanent And this is when future risk becomes clearer. And this is the only time to then start thinking about settlement. But if you settle too early, you take on all future medical risk. The insurance company walks away permanently, and there's no reopening that claim, even if things worsen. And again, if you sign a release from an insurance company, it will specifically put in there that you're releasing them for everything that's happened in the past and everything that might materialize, whether it's known right now when you're signing that document or not. So it's so important to really fully understand what your medical condition is and what it means for your future. Common mistakes that I see is stopping care because the pain is tolerable, avoiding specialists when you've been referred to a specialist, and letting insurance suggest treatment decisions. You've got to be careful because adjusters will throw out, hey, maybe, you can give it time. Or if you want to go see a doctor, whatever. You got to remember, insurance adjusters work for the insurance company. The insurance company is a for-profit business. It's there to make money. That insurance adjuster, they're under guidelines to make that insurance company money. They are not your friend. They are not your advisor. They are not your legal counsel. You need a lawyer. That's the only person that's going to be on your side. You cannot trust the insurance company and their adjusters. Just as a wrap up, keep this in mind. Once you settle, your medical future becomes your responsibility, not the insurance companies. So you've got to make sure you fully understand what your medical future looks like. Also, same line of thinking, what your potential to go back to work looks like. So critical. That's how you make money. That's how you survive. And if that's been jeopardized because of a serious injury, you need to be compensated for that. And medical care is only half of the story. Money stress is the other half. Again, when we're in this middle ground of the claim, financial stress can become a real thing. We see it all the time. That's why there's these companies out there that will loan people money against a possible settlement. They're making money because people get under financial stress and they're not ready to settle with the insurance company. And they say, hey, we're willing to provide you money. The problem with those companies, and that's a topic for a whole nother episode, but they charge crazy amounts of interest. It's the most expensive way you can probably get money, and it's not a good solution. But the takeaway of all this is financial stress is a real component of any serious injury claim. And you've got to be prepared for that going into it, that you can't just jump at what the insurance company is going to throw out there. So what does this financial stress look like in the real world of a personal injury claim? We're talking medical bills. We're talking potential other claims that are out there from maybe a health insurance company that wants money back for medical bills they've paid. This is the stress that nobody warned you about. What surprises people is that, number one, they get medical treatment and they automatically think somebody else is responsible. And I've set up a claim with that person's insurance company. I don't have to worry about these bills. This is on them. But that's not how it works in the real world. Automobile insurance companies, they don't pay bills one at a time. As they come in, they're in your name. You're responsible for those bills, and you have to make sure they're being dealt with some way, or they're going to go to collections, and now your credit is affected. So you've got to know how these medical bills can be handled. The other problem is it may be months down the road before you see a medical bill from a provider. And what if you've settled too soon and now you get a medical bill that wasn't incorporated into the settlement? Health insurance reimbursement claims. more and more health insurance companies under federal law are allowed to attempt to get payment out of a settlement for money they've paid towards medical bills that came out of an injury caused by somebody else. And again, this is complicated stuff. You have to understand how that federal law works, when companies are truly entitled to get money out of a settlement and when they are not, because you may just be giving up money out of a settlement that you never had to give up. It could have been yours. And again, money is critical when you're seriously hurt. You're looking for every penny to go to you. And then medical providers. Again, some medical providers, if they find out it's an accident, they won't even charge your health insurance. They want to know who the automobile insurance company is. And of course, you're thinking, I'll give it to them because, hey, it's off my plate now. I don't have to worry about it. They're going to pay that bill. And that's true. But the problem is it's going to come out of a settlement. Again, it's not going to be paid separately in addition to. It's all part of your claim. And so being able to know the law and know how to potentially reduce those types of bills coming out of a settlement is critical, again, to getting you every penny you should be getting. And finally, there can be confusion about who gets paid first, right? What's the priority look like when there are multiple people, multiple companies trying to get money from your settlement? You know, who truly is at the top of the list and who's at the bottom? All very important things to know. This phase of a claim just feels so overwhelming because, again, you have no income coming in, possibly. The bills are stacking up. You have fear of collections. I've had clients worried about losing their homes, cars, things that you need to survive. And that pressure to settle just to stop the chaos just weighs on you, because that insurance company, they're going to keep on you. They're going to keep on you. And they know the longer this goes, you're going to pull the trigger on a settlement without fully knowing what exactly that looks like for you, for your future. So we also have to talk about net recovery. Again, this is where we're talking about getting you every penny you deserve from your serious injury. And you have to understand, right? You're going to hear a settlement number, but you really care about what your net recovery is. So just because an insurance company says, we'll pay X to settle this claim, they don't really care how many other companies, people, whatever that looks like, have to be paid out of that money. They just want you to sign off and be done with it and let you deal with all of these people and these companies that now want money out of your settlement. Negotiation behind the scenes matters. Before it's ever fully settled, a claim has to be thoroughly thought out. All these companies and people that want money out of the settlement, they have to be dealt with on the front side while there is no settlement in place, because that's when you have the best ability to get all those companies to take less or maybe nothing. Again, a personal injury lawyer knows who is and who isn't entitled to get money out of your settlement. And they also know how to get those amounts reduced so that, again, your bottom line is as big as it can be. Early planning improves the outcomes of your bottom line. The sooner you start dealing with all these potential players that want money out of your settlement, the better off you are. And that's one thing, again, as a personal injury lawyer, we find out who our client's health insurance is through. You know, is there going to be a reimbursement claim? What medical bills are getting processed through health insurance? What medical bills are not getting processed through health insurance? I can tell you an example. Ambulances, generally, ambulance companies will not submit a bill that's coming out of an accident to a health insurance company. And a lot of times They don't even care to get the auto insurance information. They're just going to send you the $1,200 bill and they're going to tell you owe this. So what do you do in that situation? We know ways of handling that so that, number one, you don't have to go out of pocket. Number two, you're not left holding on to this bill that's now going to collections. Those are just little snippets of examples like that you just have to understand. There's a lot that goes into these claims. This phase is stressful, but it's manageable with the right strategy. So let's talk a minute about insurance negotiations and why offers usually feel insulting. So first offers are always low. There's anchoring tactics. They're going to try to say, you only have this amount in medical bills. This really wasn't that big of a deal. So we're going to offer you X, which represents what insurance companies would have paid on the medical bills and a little bit for pain and suffering. Meanwhile, the medical bills maybe didn't all go through health insurance, but they're expecting you to go negotiate all these bills now as if you're an insurance company. And that seems fair, right? You're the one that's hurt. Their insured caused the accident, but the burden's all on you. And again, they want to throw out offers. They want to test how desperate someone is. It gives them every opportunity. Why would they pay you full value out of the gate? They want to see just what you would take. And you got to remember this. If you're not a lawyer, you're just a person handling it. You represent no threat to the insurance company. They're not worried, oh, if they don't like what we're doing, they're going to go file a lawsuit. They're not worried about that at all. If you don't have a lawyer, they don't care. And it's interesting because when you hire a lawyer, whatever insurance adjuster you've been dealing with, that person's automatically gone. It goes to a different adjuster within the insurance company because it gets stepped up. Now they know there's a lawyer involved. There's a threat involved. And you just have to keep that in mind if you're trying to deal with this stuff on your own. And they also throw out these offers just seeing if the injured person truly understands the process and whether or not they're going to be able to get one over on you. So what strengthens your case? What do you have to be thinking about and what do you have to be doing? Consistent medical care. You need to listen to the doctors and others that are involved in your medical care. You need to go where they tell you to go. You need to do the treatments they tell you to do, because any inconsistency could prove to be a problem. And if this is impacting your work, you're going to want to get something from your employer that tells this insurance company, this is why you haven't been working. You've been working reduced hours. They had to make special accommodations for you, things like that. And again, strengthening your case is about credibility over time and consistency in treatment, consistency in complaints, things like that. That is credibility being established. And that's so important. And you've got to have the willingness to tell this insurance company, not yet. Wait, I'm not ready. I'll get back to you when the time is right. Unfortunately, they usually ignore that and they keep putting pressure on you. But that's where you have to be. Or you've got to get somebody in there to act as the middleman, to take the pressure off, no longer have that insurance company communicating with you and making sure you're focused on what's really important at that moment, which again is your injuries, your medical care, and just trying to hold everything together. In these claims, there's various phases of the legal aspect of the claim. First is the negotiation stage to see if an insurance company will reasonably pay the fair value of your claim. It happens with a lawyer involved, but sometimes it doesn't. So, then things have to be escalated. And again, a lawsuit may have to be filed. And during the pendency of a lawsuit, There are always opportunities to resolve the claim. It doesn't mean you're going to automatically go to a full-blown jury trial. You may end up in a mediation where everybody gets together, a mediator works on a settlement that works for everybody. And a mediation is a great opportunity to really hash everything out and get the most money that is reasonable for your claim. But again, if that doesn't work, insurance company is being unreasonable, there is always a jury trial, and 12 jurors can decide how much, if anything, you're going to get for everything that you've been through. So again, there's a lot of stages and a lot of time that can unfold to get this claim resolved. Just remember this: insurance companies don't pay for pain. They pay for proof and they pay for patience. And it's just so critical because you can tell an insurance company how much pain you've been in, how much disturbance this has created in your life, all those things. But if it's not documented, it's not shown, and it's too soon, they're not going to pay you fairly. So what does a good outcome, I use air quotes for that, really look like in an injury claim? You have to redefine success. We're talking about closure, right? Getting the claim done, financial stability, medical certainty, reduced future risk, and peace of mind. That is a good outcome to a personal injury claim. And you've got to keep this in mind because I hear this a lot as well. You have to avoid comparing. If you hear stuff, if you get on Google and you think this is what I should be getting because Joe Blow at work told me one thing, or my buddy told me something, or you get on Google and you're researching California cases, which I get that people send me stuff and I'm like, this is California. We're in Missouri. We're in Kansas. None of this adds up. But you have to avoid comparison. Every injury is different. Social media settlements lack context. If you see something on social media, for example, or again, what your buddy's friend's sister got out of something, allegedly. Headlines hide cost and they hide the delays. And again, if you hear about some big settlement and you're thinking, my goodness, that should be my case. Maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. But again, your case is driven by your situation. And that's where your lawyer will know best how your case should resolve. So, takeaways from this episode is that you have to stay patient, you have to stay informed, and you have to stay protected. Remember this coming out of this 3-part series kicking off the new year. Prepare before an injury. Make sure you watch the first episode of this year. Number 2, protect yourself early and stay steady through the process. Don't let the insurance company get one over on you. The system doesn't reward panic. It rewards consistency and clarity. And it's so critical that you don't act too quickly. So as we go away, save this series, share it with somebody you may know that needs it. Maybe somebody you know is navigating an injury. Ask questions early instead of guessing. As I always encourage you, reach out. It's a free phone call. We're happy to tell you if we think we can help you in a claim so that you don't make mistakes, because again, you only get one shot. And if you blow it, it could affect you for the rest of your life. So remember, watch this episode and be prepared, be safe, be protected.